We're live. Woohoo! Yay!
Yay.
I am running a little behind schedule today. I just literally ran out of a meeting in the Capitol building and sprinted over here to get on. So thank you so much. Sorry, everyone, for running a couple minutes late. I am Stacy Nell, the Executive Director of the Kansas African American Affairs Commission. This is our weekly Lunch and Learn, a free service provided to you by the state of Kansas to get information out to us. I am thrilled today to be joined by the Wyandotte County District Attorney, one Mark Dupree Sr. And I would love to, let's see, I've got his bio pulled up because you need to hear about the thing. Oh yeah, I'm gonna read a little bit of the bio.
Yes.
Don't even. Mark Dupree Sr. is the District Attorney of Wyandotte County, Kansas, the fourth largest county in the state of Kansas. Dupree's focus is equitably charging and prosecuting of crime, being proactive with attacking violent crimes and crimes that affect the standard of living in the community. Mr. Dupree has also practiced in a diversity of legal capacities. He clerked in Jackson County, Missouri, served as assistant prosecuting attorney in Jackson County, and he and his wife practiced their firm Dupree and Dupree LLC, attorneys at law, until swearing into his office. I have met your wife. She is a lovely woman. Mr. Dupree's goal is to give back what has been sowed into him, and he does this by speaking at countless churches and schools. Mr. Dupree has hosted various legal shadow day experiences and sponsored free month-long legal clinic and hosted Cuts and Confidence, providing half-price haircuts to students in the Wyandotte County area. Mr. Dupree is an active member in the community, and he's a senior pastor and ordained elder at his father's church in Wyandotte County. So I just want to give a more rounded vision. You are more than just one thing. And so I appreciate that about everyone who comes on. But the most important question, because this is a lunch and learn, what are you having for lunch?
Well, thank you for that question. I will tell you, I will tell on myself. So yesterday was Father's Day, and my wife went and got me some peach cobbler from the best peach cobbler cook in town.
You tell.
And listen, this morning I had peach cobbler probably about 30 minutes ago. I have not had lunch. I had peach cobbler and a small amount of pralines and cream ice cream. So don't do that. As soon as I'm done with this, I'm going to the gym to run it all off before I eat healthy.
You know, the older I get, the more I find myself saying, no judgments. You know,
I appreciate that.
I always say, I find myself saying, I'm not in that house. I'm not in that house. And I got to tell you, if I had peach cobbler in my house, I might have had peach cobbler for breakfast my own self. So I ain't mad at you for that.
It was very delicious. So I'm sorry for putting that in your head. It was delicious.
Yeah, I just had a bagel, and I haven't had lunch yet. I've been busy running around. Mm-hmm. Okay, so thank you so much. You are currently the Wyandotte County District Attorney, right? And so I wanted to ask you, for those of us in the audience or who may be watching this a little later, could you explain exactly what the district attorney's job is, right? Like, you know, I love that I get a chance to talk to various people in different jobs. So what does a district attorney do?
So the district attorney is the chief law enforcement official in the county. In essence, just like we have the state attorney general, who is the chief official prosecutor for the entire state, each district attorney or county attorney in all of the 105 counties in our state, each have their own elected county and or district attorney, and they are as the attorney general of that state. So their entire job is to deal with crime, the highest level of crimes. And so I deal specifically with felony cases from theft all the way to the most heinous of murders of crimes. And all of those cases come through the district attorney's office. We do handle some misdemeanor crimes. Some counties handle more misdemeanors than others. We have a municipal court who deals quite a bit with our misdemeanor minor crimes, and we allow them to just handle that. Whereas if we have some misdemeanors that come in accompanied by a felony crime, then we will take and prosecute all of those crimes as well. Okay. And so in essence, the police gather all their evidence, and then they submit it to the district attorney's office to determine whether or not we will charge an actual crime. And if we decide to, based off of the evidence, then we are then charged with taking it all the way through the courts to completion of trial.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that explanation.
Absolutely.
And so how long, and when were you elected? So how long have you been in the position currently?
So I was elected in 2016, took office in 2017, and I am going on 6 years. So I am in the middle of my second term.
Fantastic.
So still having a blast.
Good, good. Are you term limited, or is this something that you could just do?
Yeah, I am not term limited. And a funny story is the longest serving district attorney in the state of Kansas was right here in Wyandotte County, Nick Tomasic. He was the DA for 32 years, I believe, in this county. And I'll tell you, I do not plan on competing with him. But point being is, no, I'm not term limited.
But you're not going to stay here for 32 years?
No, I don't think my wife would allow it.
Okay, so that's what you're doing now. How did you? So as I was asking Secretary Burns Wallace a couple weeks ago, as a young child, did you always envision yourself working in policing or law enforcement or in such a public service? Was this always something that you wanted to do?
Well, I got to tell you, it couldn't have been further from what I saw myself. As you can see, I am a Black man, and a dark-skinned Black man in this country tends to have to deal with quite a bit of, sadly, desperate impacts of negative things in our criminal justice system. And as such, growing up, I was taught to stay away from the police, stay away from the courts. People die, people go to jail and prison wrongfully. And so having said that, I did not grow up trying to run toward the police.
Right. Okay.
But what happened was, having grown up in that, my father and mother were pastors. They said you can do whatever you want to do, and with Christ nothing is impossible. And so they taught about justice, they taught about equality, and so on and so forth, and said, if God was in the system, then the system can work. And so having said that, I was 14 years old, and at 14 years old, I was then able to shadow, because I was a pretty good student, at the courthouse. So I remember, like it was yesterday, they said, Dupree, wear your best suit, come to school, and we'll take you down there to shadow. So I put on my communion suit, and I put on my white shirt and black tie, and stood outside in front of the school, and I got on the school bus, and they took me down, me and another person, to the courthouse. Well, one of us went to the courthouse, one went to City Hall. I had never been down there before. I didn't know what to do, where I was going. Walked inside the courthouse, and I was met with a deputy who said, "Are you Mark Dupree?" And I'm thinking, oh God, my mother is going to whip my butt. She told me not to get in trouble, and here comes this cop who's messing with me. I said, "Yes, I'm Mark Dupree." He said, "Well, follow me. The judge is waiting on you." So I'm walking up, and we go into this courtroom, and in this courtroom, I see a lot of folks carrying briefcases, dressed in suits and dresses, and none of them look like me. The only African-American sitting in there, and I sat down in the back of the courtroom, and quite frankly, Stacey, I was scared out of my mind because I didn't see anybody look like me. I'd never been there before, and a few minutes passed, I hear someone yell, "All rise, court's now in session." And what happened next scared me so to the point, or rather shocked me so to the point, that I forgot to stand up, and somebody hit the bench and said, "Stand up, young man." But what happened was, a tiny, short African-American man with the mini afro by the name of Judge Cordell Meeks Jr. walks into the bench. That was the first time that I saw someone that looked like me in a position of authority in the criminal justice system and in the courtroom, that did not have cuffs on, that was not going to jail, that wasn't wearing the orange suit. That one-day mentor-mentee relationship turned into a 7-year mentor-mentee relationship, and ultimately completely changed the trajectory of where I wanted to go. And through his mentorship, I went on to KU, and then went on to law school. And the summer that he died, I was interning as a intern in the Wyandotte County Prosecutor's Office that I now lead. And so he was able to see me from a 14-year-old shadow student to actually temporarily practicing law before he passed. And so what he showed me, which is one of the reasons why I go into the community, why I go into the schools, why I expose young people, he exposed to me that regardless of your race, creed, color, in this country's sadly bad history with Black, brown, and broke folks in this community, you can make a positive impact in this criminal justice system. You just have to be in the right spot and in the right position. So that's how I got to this place.
I had not heard that story before, so I am glad that I heard it, and it just feeds into something that has come up so often in my life, and then in even previous conversations. This idea that you can't be what you don't see, and so for you as a 14, you said you were 14 at that time. Just seeing Cordell Meeks Jr. as a judge was like, wait a minute, that means that Black people can be in this room, and like you said, not in handcuffs, not in the jumpsuit, but they can be the ones who are actually in positions of decision making. That is
absolutely
fantastic. I love that. I love that. So now you're the district attorney of Wyandotte County. And one of the main reasons, outside of, just wanting to have you on and chit chat with you. Oh, by the way, my mother says hello. I did mention to her that you were going to be on today. And she said, I will have to make sure to watch. For those of you, this is just way too much information. The DA of Wyandotte County has a small crush on my mother, and that's fine. They're mutual.
Listen, I am a super fan. I have this huge crush. She is absolutely amazing. And every time I see her, I want to take a picture with her. So hello, and hello.
Yeah, I think the last time it's like, can I get a picture? And I was like, sure. And he's like, no, can you take a picture of me and your mother? That's literally how it went down. I was like getting ready for and he's like, no, can you take a picture?
She is
my mother is Frances Robinson. She's awesome. She
has written books on Wyandotte County and her history, and her family is amazing. And all of the things that your family has done and impacted in Wyandotte County and the forward progress concerning Black and brown folks in this community is phenomenal. And not even mentioning the NAACP. And so the fact that I get to say hello to your mom just gives me tingles. So yeah.
Well, I believe you just made her day as well. I want to make sure she's not showing up in the comments. Anyway, but okay. So here is the reason that I did want to bring you on, because I know you have been leading an effort to have, you're the district attorney, but having a public defender's office in Wyandotte County. So I really want to give you, here a good 10, 12 minutes to talk about your I don't even know, campaign, maybe the right word, your push, your efforts to have a public defender's office in Wyandotte County. So the district attorney is the lead prosecutor. Can you talk to us about what the public defender's office would be in charge of?
Yes, ma'am. And so the public defender's office, just to give kind of by way of context, the court said in the U.S. v. Gideon case, in nearly 50, 60, is it 60 or 70 years now? This is 2020, my goodness. So this Supreme Court case said that every individual that is arrested is to be given a court-appointed attorney. They should be able and allowed to have an attorney that can represent their constitutional rights in trial. Before this case, the Gideon case, that was not the law. So individuals could be charged with a crime, be arrested, and sit there and then have to go before the court, and try to tough it out themselves against the prosecutor. Well, that changed. Well, with that, there were many ways that the court began to appoint attorneys. And there's two main ways that occurred. One was that simply whenever an individual had a situation and they needed an attorney, they would ask for a public defender or court-appointed attorney, and the court then would appoint private counsel who has their own private firm, who's doing their own thing. And if you're sitting in the back of the courtroom, guess what? Attorney Dupree, you're appointed to this case now. Go and talk to your client, and the court would pay that private attorney. The other way of doing this thing that really came about in the 80s and early 90s across the country, but here specifically in Kansas, the public defender's office, where they would literally, it's like a mini firm. You hire anywhere from 5 to 15 to 20, private attorneys that would be solely your attorneys for that office. So now they don't have their private practices anymore. They are public defenders hired by the state of Kansas. And then the court then, rather than looking for an attorney to give it to, they simply say, okay, we have this murder case or this whatever kind of case. The individual cannot afford to hire his own attorney or her own attorney. The court then appoints the public defender's office to that case. And then that chief public defender then appoints one of whoever, of the 20 attorneys he has to that case. So Johnson County did this in the 80s. Wichita did this in the 80s. You can go on to Junction City, Salina, Topeka. There's quite a few that did this, okay? Wyandotte County was not one of them. And so it's important to note that Wyandotte, of course, is the most ethnically and racially diverse community in the state of Kansas. And sadly, with that, we're also one of the lower economic status and health communities as well. And when you combine that, right, then you find that crime begins to bubble up. And so we also have the most volume for the amount of people we have of violent crimes throughout the last couple decades. And so what the court did here is said, look, we're not going to go to a public defender's office. We're going to continue to appoint private counsel. Well, here's where the issue came in. The issue came in is in Wyandotte County, which I love, we are elected officials. Likewise, our judges are elected officials. It's the same way in Wichita. I am a fan of electing our judges because oftentimes when you don't elect your judges, then that means that the folks who are making those decisions are not really the people that the system touches. It's the people who have power, the people who have connections, and the people who have money, which usually, is, the top 3% of any community. And so with this election process of judges, it gives everyone at least a shot. Right? Don't know how much of a shot, but at least a shot. Well, here's the issue. The issue is when judges are elected here, and then those same judges turn around and have to appoint attorneys to cases where the state then will pay them a substantial amount of money. Right? So there is an appearance of impropriety, an appearance of conflict. If you support me in my campaign, if you provide funds in my campaign, then when it's time for that murder case that usually yields about $5,000 to $10,000 to $15,000, guess what, Attorney Joe Blow, I'm appointing you to that case, right? Regardless of your ability or inability to effectively represent these attorneys or these defendants, you're getting appointed. And so for decades, what has been happening is this appointment of counsel that, quite frankly, in some cases, not all, because there are those who are on the list, serve, and judges appoint them, and they do a good job. But there are others, quite frankly, many who do not, right? And I know this because when I was in private practice, I was on that list. But if I'm getting paid at the time when I was on the list, I was getting paid $63 an hour by the courts. Whereas in my private practice, I'm charging $250 or $150 to $250 an hour. And so guess what? If I got a client that the court gave me at $63 an hour, right, or a client at $250 an hour, guess who's coming first, right? And so it puts a huge issue there. The other part that we end up doing beyond that of the conflict and looking at that and then the time disparities is we pulled hundreds of cases over the last 2 years and said, or really 3 years, right before the pandemic and right during, to say, okay, let's look and see how many of these individuals, if they were going to go into custody, and if they were in custody, then I'm sorry, my dog just ran in. I so apologize. And he's playing with a toy that's making noise. Give me 1 second. Let me get it.
The beauty of live television, folks. This is, or I guess, live streaming. I understand. There have been days I've been on entire Zoom meetings where I'm just like frantically petting a dog, like, please be quiet, please be quiet. So yeah, I get it.
I'm so sorry. And so, but with that, what we found is that, okay, so there's individuals, right? When you're arrested for a crime, there are some crimes that are presumptive probation, meaning that if you plead guilty right now, you could get out of jail and you would have to report to somebody once a month.
Okay.
And then you have crimes that are presumptive prison. This is all according to statute, the sentencing guidelines. And meaning if you plead guilty right now, there's a presumption according to statute, you're going to prison right now, right?
Right.
Well, what we found that out of the 125 that we pulled on the first batch that we pulled, 80 of those 125 were presumptive probation. Issue was that out of those 80, 90% of them spent over 80 days in jail.
Wow.
On cases that were presumptive probation. And ultimately, that meant that their appointed counsel did not get them out of custody, but instead they spent more time in the county jail on a crime that had no jail time.
Wow.
Pursuant to the statute, right?
Wow.
And so we spent about $100, $105 a day housing individuals that were not supposed to be in jail.
And even if they were guilty, they wouldn't necessarily been in jail.
Absolutely.
Now, because I heard you did this because you and I were on the Hispanic and Latino American Affairs Commission, and you explained this so clearly, and I'm like, this explanation you're about to give alone was enough for me to say I need you on this show. Please explain to the viewers here, what is the difference for a person who is charged with a crime if there were a public defender's office, or if there wasn't, or how do those disparities play out? If it's a person who has resources and means versus a person who doesn't have resources and means, how those two things might play out.
So let's go with Johnson County, because I was a public defender there, and this is the normal way that the process works. Police are called, they come out, they arrest you. The police has 48 hours to charge you with a crime. They then charge you with this crime. The judge then has 48 hours to give you first appearance. And within that first appearance, the judge then makes these statements to you. You're there, the prosecutor there, and the public defender's office is there. Can you afford an attorney? No, I can't afford an attorney. Okay, one is going to be appointed you today. That public defender is appointed. Then at that first appearance, they have the ability to request a bond reduction to get you out of custody, as well as make that determination. Is this a presumptive probation case or presumptive prison? Are you a risk to the community or a risk to yourself, or not at all? Within that 48 hours, and then moving on to the 7 days. So let's say the judge says, no, you don't get to get out of jail. Well, then within that 7 days, that public defender then has to come out to your jail to visit you. Now let's transpose that with Wyandotte County. In Wyandotte County, you have that same 48-hour rule. However, the judge does not allow the public defender or court-appointed attorney to be in there. Why? Because no attorney has been appointed. There is no public defender's office. Prosecutor is not there. The public defender is not there. So within that 48 hours, not only is there not an attorney there, but there is no request for a bond reduction. There is no review for probation or so on and so forth. You're stuck in jail. There's no 7-day rule to determine whether or not an attorney is going to come see you. In Wyandotte County, on average, it took 9 to 16 days for a judge to appoint attorney, and then an average of 3 to 6 months for that attorney to come and see you in custody.
Wow.
And so when we're talking about the
so whereas in Johnson County, all that happens in 7 days, in Wyandotte County, that may take up to 6 months.
Up to 6 months. And there is nothing that anyone can do because the judges are not the boss of those appointed counsel. Right. Whereas in public defender's offices, they have a boss.
That's their job.
Counsel can say you're fired.
Yeah. Yeah. Whoo.
So it is so necessary. It's necessary for justice. Now, look, here's something, and I'll end with this. Lamont McIntyre was in prison for 23 years for a crime he didn't commit.
Right.
We got in there. We looked at the facts. We looked at the case. We found that the DA's office didn't hand over information that was supposed to be handed over. There was manifest injustice. He then was released from prison on that case. We refused to refile. Case was dismissed. The attorney general then reviewed the case and gave him a certificate of innocence. I'm going somewhere with this. Here's the point. The point is, here I am, a African-American Democrat district attorney, first in the state of Kansas as an African-American. And then you have at that time, Derek Schmidt, who is absolutely right-wing Republican white man. And both of us came to the same conclusion. This man did not commit these murders. The individual who was appointed to represent him as his attorney on that list from 20-something, now 30 years ago, to this day, right, as of 2 weeks ago, was still receiving appointments from that same list, even though he screwed that up back then. And just this last Friday, the Supreme Court indefinitely suspended that individual just this last Friday. Wow. So here's the point. Point is, not only do we have individuals who shouldn't be on this list of handling cases, we have history that shows some of them have caused, or at least have been a part of, individuals being wrongfully convicted. That's why the prosecutor says we have to have a public defender's office, because I have to retry these cases. The tax dollars have to retry these cases. We spent over $532,000 in housing individuals that wasn't supposed to be in jail.
Right.
It's fiscal responsible, it's justice oriented, and it's absolutely necessary.
So if people who are listening to this right now, right, is there anything that we can do? What is our recourse? I know you are working on this. I know you are pushing to have would it be the statutes change, or to have a public defender's office established in Wyandotte County? What can we as the public do to lend support or raise our voice, or what?
You can contact your local representative as well as your local senator here in Topeka, and let them know to vote for the State Board of Indigent Services budget. They have put into their budget for next year a Wyandotte County Public Defender's Office. We just need to get it over the hump in the budget process. And so what can you do? You can call and make sure that your representative represents your thought, and make sure they vote for the State Board of Indigent Services budget up on next year.
Okay. State Board, ARD of
Indigent Services. Heather Cessna is the director, and she's done a phenomenal job in really pushing this point. She brought it to Wyandotte County. Over 200 folks showed up and really showed that we wanted one, and the board voted unanimously for a public defender's office. We just have to get it through the budget. So
it's the issue of the budget. Okay, so there we go. I put in the chat that if you were going to write a letter in support of the State Board of Indigent Services budget. So there you go. It's in the chat. I thank you so much for coming out. You know, this we don't have the hugest of audiences, but there are a couple people maybe who hadn't heard what's going on in Wyandotte County. So if I could help spread the word even a little bit to get you, a couple of letters of support here or there, I'm glad to do so, to lend support to this, because I think it is an important issue. If there are people who are sitting, potentially so many innocent people are just sitting in jail, not even having representation. As you were talking, I was thinking, I think everyone knows who we've watched enough CSI to know, you have a right to remain silent. You have a right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed to you, like,
yep, just like that.
I probably slaughtered that. That's okay. I mean, I've watched just that much CSI, but to find out that that's not the case that's happening in Wyandotte County. So, and I know you are all about the work to help the brown, the black, and the broke in this state. And so I look forward to any opportunity to join with you to do that. We are almost at 30 minutes, but at the end of every show, I always want to take time to impress upon our community that we have to get registered to vote. Even Dupree himself, it's an elected office. So if you like what you heard and you like what you see, in order for him to keep his job, it's an elected office. Please make sure you are registered to vote. We have dropped in the chat where you can go to look up your registration. If you've moved recently, make sure that everything's up to date. You need to be registered to vote by July 12th in order to vote in the special election that's taking place on August 2nd. And I have learned to talk about it as a special election. Everyone is available to vote in this election. You do not have to be a Democrat or Republican or Libertarian or unaffiliated. It is open to everyone. Even if you live in an area where there's not a contested primary, it's a special election that's open to everyone. Please make sure to make a plan for how you're going to vote in that August 2nd election and the November 8th general election. Thank you so much, Mr. Dupree, for coming on today. It is always a pleasure to chit chat with you and to hear what you have to say. And again, I just want to lend support to your efforts anywhere that I can.
Thank you so much. And thank you for all of the fantastic work that you're doing for this state. Please keep it up and let me know anytime how I can help.
You got it. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. We will see you next Monday. Thanks. Bye-bye.